Well, how did we get here? While I have made individual videos on a majority of these events as they happened, today's video is going to be a complete telling of the story from start to where we are currently of the Candace Owens Ben Shapiro drama that is going on. So if you've watched all of my other videos, then this is just going to be a repeat of a lot of that. But I figured I'd make one comprehensive video that summarizes everything that's happened so far so that people who have no idea what's going on can catch up really quickly. So this entire Candace Owens Ben Shapiro thing started all with one video, and it was the video of Ben Shapiro. And there really isn't much context behind this video, but Ben was at some type of party or some type of speaking event. He looks like he had a few too many white wines, and he had this to say.
Yes, the question is about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I can't close that. Yeah, she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
And yeah, because Ben finds Candace disreputable and said it, and somebody was recording, now the whole world knows Ben Shapiro's drunken slip. And well, Candace was already planning on going on the Tucker Carlson show before this ever happened, but then this video came out right before the Tucker Carlson show. And so, of course, Tucker Carlson asked Candace about this clip when she came on his show, and she had this to say.
So I was out of the country yesterday and didn't have adequate internet access on the plane to really follow this, and I don't understand the context exactly, but the internet was dominated yesterday by video of Ben Shapiro, who you work with at the Daily Wire, I think it's fair to say, attacking you. Here's the video. I just want to get your reaction to it.
Yes, the question is about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. Yeah, she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
So maybe there's a point in the video where he explains what exactly you did wrong and how you were wrong. I haven't seen it. But to call somebody, quote, absolutely disgraceful, particularly a coworker, seems like a pretty big step. And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
You know, there isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attacks. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not, we disagree, or I don't think she's correct, or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing that he has expressed in that, at least in that short clip, that he fundamentally disagrees with in terms of what I said. But I will say that I'm not going to respond with the same ad hominem attacks. Yes. I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
Has he texted you to apologize or explain or anything?
No, nothing. I haven't heard a single word. It just was sort of something that he said. And you know what? Ben and I have many disagreements, so I don't think that that's particularly something that's interesting. We disagreed on the COVID vaccine. We disagree on Ukraine and Russia. He has taken virtually every stance that has been the opposite of mine on every issue over the last 5 years. So I don't think that that's particularly remarkable.
Vaccine. Really, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he was pro the COVID vaccine. I was anti the vaccine. We were all idiots for not getting the vaccine. So that's totally fine. I am totally open to people having a difference in opinion.
Right.
I would hope that amongst colleagues that it would always be a civil disagreement, and I would never in a private event stand on a table and talk badly about Ben.
It's just it's a little weird. So he was on the left on those three biggest issues of our time, is what you're saying?
He has converted his opinions. He's accepted responsibility. He said, I was wrong about the vaccine.
Oh, good.
He is, obviously pro-pharma. His mom's a doctor. And I say to people, I'm very aware of my perspectives on Big Pharma, and I talk about it on my show openly. And I think that that's a tremendous credit to the Daily Wire, that they allow a difference of opinions. But as I said, hope that it would remain respectful and that you wouldn't throw your colleagues under a bus, so to speak,
I think
in a private setting.
I think that's fair. And just for clarity, because I really don't know, is he your boss? Does he?
I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Ben's involvement. He's not the CEO of the Daily Wire. He is not making the day-to-day decisions of the Daily Wire. And I do want to make it very clear, because people are like, how could you possibly save Daily Wire after this? I have a very good relationship with the co-CEOs of the Daily Wire. Especially right now, the acting CEO is Caleb Robinson. He's a wonderful person. He's worked very hard to be where he's at. We have a lot in common that we connect on. And so people don't get to see that, which is unfortunate. Ben lives in Florida. He's not a part of the day-to-day movement of the Daily Wire. The rest of the hosts have their shows situated in Nashville. So we see each other every day. We talk. There's great camaraderie. And there's actually more agreement. There's actually a lot of people that are, as I describe myself, just pro-America first. And I think I've been that way consistently throughout my political career. Whether people agree with it or not in different moments is up for debate. But I don't want that video to become a reflection of how the Daily Wire works and the Daily Wire operates, because I have had a very good experience with the CEOs, and love Michael Knowles, love Matt Walsh, Andrew Klavan. We all get along really great.
Well, it certainly speaks well of the Daily Wire then. So it's not, a clip like that on the internet, Candace Owens is out or something. That's doesn't sound like that's what it means at all.
Yeah, no, it's a small group of people. We see each other every day. Right. Brett Cooper is another one who just joined about 2 years ago. She's great. She's up and coming. And there's a lot of stuff that we're working on. And that's why I think this video is even more unfortunate, because people see him as a figurehead, rightfully so, of the Daily Wire. And it allows people to, speak energy into the Daily Wire that isn't necessarily there, because he's not there on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So that's what Candace had to say about Ben Shapiro on the Tucker Carlson show. However, on Twitter, about 30 minutes before that episode dropped on Tucker Carlson's Twitter feed, Ben and Candace got into it on Twitter. And so the tweet that set off Ben Shapiro was this one right here, where Candace is basically quoting the Bible and then just says her opinion at the end of you cannot serve both God and money. Pretty normal tweet from Candace. Just Candace being Candace, speaking her mind, And then Ben Shapiro sees Candace's tweet and responds to it about 30 minutes before the interview with Tucker Carlson premieres on Twitter, and says, Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit. So he's basically right there daring Candace to quit the Daily Wire. Then Candace and Ben go back and forth a little bit on Twitter. I don't have documentation of all the stuff that was said. But basically it ends here with Candace saying, you've been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we have all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it. So Candace is just standing her ground of like, I said what I said. Like, it's not about you, Ben. Like, leave me alone, basically, is what she's trying to say. Then quite a bit of time passes. The drama seems to die down. Everyone seems to forget about it. Then on March 22nd, just out of the blue, out of absolutely nowhere, Jeremy Boring posts this tweet to his Twitter and says Daily Wire and Candace Owens have ended their relationship. No explanation, no nothing, just bleep, that's it. And no one else says anything else about it from the Daily Wire. This is all that we get from them. Just Jeremy Boring sending out one tweet. Bloop, Candace is gone. Obviously, there was a lot of speculation and a lot of guessing as to who, what, why, how, all that, We really didn't know anything about what was going on at this point. Then, on March 25th, Jeremy Boring goes off on a whole bunch of people for saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic. And let me remind everyone, he did this literally 1 week before Easter. He went on, and he didn't do this to a whole bunch of Muslims who were saying Christ is King to Jews and using it as some sort of anti-Semitic slur. No, he went to actual practicing Christians and said they can't say Christ is King because it's anti-Semitic. And here we have the tweet of Jeremy defending how saying Christ is King is anti-Semitic. Jeremy says the same way anything becomes anti-Semitic, when it is used for the purpose of expressing anti-Semitism. It's like asking, how does a shovel become a murder weapon? when it is used to murder someone. This isn't hard. A shovel is not inherently a murder weapon. Saying Christ is king is not inherently anti-Semitic. It's all about how a thing is used. Saying, eat some cornbread is not racist if I say it to my 3-year-old when she is refusing to eat dinner. If I start saying it as a response to X posts by black commentators I don't like, it has taken on a meaning beyond what is innate. In other words, it is connotatively racist, not denotatively racist. So to Christ is king may be anti-Semitic in connotation while not in denotation when it is being used to express anti-Semitism. When did this become so? It has always been so. Is it so? Yes, innately. Additionally, saying Christ is king for an evil purpose is like using a weapon to express your hatred for blah, 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 blah. Long story short, everybody, okay, this is just a word salad by Jeremy, which is just a limp-wristed excuse as to how Christ is king is anti-Semitic. While we all understand that under this definition, Jeremy, that literally anything could be anti-Semitic, but, like, you know, people are creative and, like, people are always going to find creative ways to insult each other. It's just what humans do. Like, but what really bothered a lot of people was the fact that he was telling this to Christians, that he was telling this to Christians, that they can't say Christ is king because that's anti-Semitic. And it's just like, bro, you're literally contradicting what you said in your post, defending what you said. And yeah, Jeremy went back and forth with quite a few people on Twitter, as you can see here. Then a few days later, Jeremy Boring was recorded during a like online chat session with a bunch of people, and he basically accidentally admitted that he fired Candace Owens. So here's the audio of that.
Hey, Jeremy, I have a
Can
question.
I jump in?
Can I just ask this real quick, Nick? I'm sorry. Like, I want to issue you a hypothetical, and I just want to get your response to it. Say you've got a really amazing opportunity to hire a conservative commentator, 20 years of experience, never set a foot out of line, just really strong conservative economic values, strong social conservative values, fits in right with what the audience of the Daily Wire is looking for. But that person starts making criticisms that are similar to what Candace Owens has been making in the past 3 months or so, and everything else about their record is just perfect. Would you consider hiring that person? Like, would that person have a slot at the Daily Wire or no?
Are you trying to ask me why I fired Candace Owens?
No, I'm asking you if you would hire someone with a beautiful, spotless track record of 20 years of amazing conservative values, but they made the same criticisms that Candace Owens has made in the past couple of months. Would that person have a job at the
Was
Daily
Candace
Wire?
Owens a conservative for 20 years?
I'm not saying that.
Carolyn?
I'm giving a
No,
hypothetical.
Candace was not conservative for 20 years. So no, this is not a Candace Owens.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
This is the next Jordan Peterson. This is the next Jordan Peterson. Going to sell millions of books, going to make you guys millions of dollars, getting millions of views on every video they post. But they've made the same criticisms Candace has made in the last 6 months. Does that person have a job?
Yeah, I'm not. Even this is too close to the Candace thing for me to speak to because I feel like there are implications of this that I'm not willing to engage in. But if your question is, would I hire, would I hire Bill Whittle if Bill Whittle suddenly said that there's a genocide going on in Gaza? No, I don't think that that's a person that I would hire at the Daily Wire.
Then a few days later, Ben Shapiro goes on the Piers Morgan show and has this to say about Candace, which also contradicts what Jeremy said earlier on Twitter, which was that he is not in a position to do hiring or firing, and he's not involved in that in any way. Ben Shapiro on the Piers Morgan show contradicts that.
One of the consequences of this war has been a lot of very high passions on both sides, a lot of angry disagreements. You and your company have been at the center of a very high profile one at the moment with Candace Owens, who's now left Daily Wire. Was she fired or did she leave of her own volition?
I'm not going to speak to this topic, Piers.
At all?
At all.
You can't give me any insight into why she departed?
No hints, no nothing. I'm not going to speak to this.
Can I ask why?
I mean, you can ask.
No, I'm not. You can ask why you don't want to say anything.
Again, you can ask.
I'm only curious because I know what a staunch defender of free speech you are, and it would surprise me if it had been someone's opinions that would make you want to part company with them, however contentious.
Suffice it to say, the only thing I will say is what I've said all along with regard to Candace or with regard to any of our other hosts. I am not in hiring and firing position with the Daily Wire. I'm a co-founder of the Daily Wire. I'm a co-owner of the Daily Wire. I'm not actually in management. Jeremy Boring and Caleb Robinson are in management positions with regard to Candace or anyone else. And as far as the free speech situation, what I will say is that no company has the obligation to literally pay anyone. The Daily Wire is a publisher. It is not a platform. I've never called for Candace or anyone else for that matter to be banned from YouTube, to be banned from X, to be banned from any platform. That's a different story, obviously, when it comes to any publisher. Any publisher gets to make decisions about what it wishes to purvey and not.
I mean, I'm just not going to labour this, but one more point I would make is it's been reported extensively that the reason for her departure was because her comments had been perceived by people at the Daily Wire as anti-Semitic.
Again, I'm not going to comment on this, Piers.
Okay. Rabbi Shmuley.
Then, just a few days after the Piers Morgan show, Ben Shapiro goes on the Rubin Report and spills the beans on the entire Candace Owens incident.
All right, so let's do the elephant in the room for just a moment, because I saw you this week on Piers Morgan. He asked you repeatedly about Candace. You repeatedly basically said,
I won't talk about that. I'll say that here too.
Yeah, and that's fine. And, you know, it's interesting because we all sort of came up together to different extents, and we've all done a million things together in public events and networks and all of those things. It seems to me that at this moment, she's now a free agent. She happened to end up on Locals, which I created, and they were a platform, not a publisher that you guys are. Can you at least talk to just sort of where it's at now? She's not with you. She's free.
She's free to do whatever she wants to do, to be wherever she wants to be. And the difference between a publisher like the Daily Wire and a platform like Locals is obviously that a platform should have a very broad range of speech that it allows, including speech that maybe even the creators don't believe is inside what they would consider to be the Overton window. It's a very different thing than direct subsidization of particular opinions. So the Daily Wire would not have a host, would not pay a host who was staunchly pro-abortion. They would have no obligation to pay a host who is staunchly pro-abortion. And so when it comes to the hosts on the Daily Wire, obviously everyone is able to say what they want. Nobody ever comes to me and says, you can't say X. Nobody ever says that to Walsh, and no one ever said that to Candace. But the reality is that there is an Overton window at the Daily Wire. Obviously, there was a non-meeting of the minds. That's pretty much all I can say on this. And, you know, a lot of this has happened publicly. But you know, to the extent that the Daily Wire is in fact not a publisher, it is that is in fact not a platform, it is a publisher. That means that there is no moral obligation for the Daily, and there's no free speech problem with the Daily Wire saying we don't wish to pay a particular host, or that host saying I don't wish to work here anymore, because again, there's a parting of the ways that you know is not really open for discussion at this point.
Does it surprise you that so many people, even on our side of this, are confused about that as it relates to free speech and quote unquote cancel culture? Like severing a business tie, as long as you're not throwing someone in jail, they're able to be everywhere else, is not.
I'm not super surprised at the controversy, honestly, because to a certain extent, I think that there's been a reaction on the right to the excesses of the left. So because what the left did is they said that the Overton window ought to be closed so tight that no one can get inside the Overton window. Basically, if you're to the right of Hillary Clinton, you can't be allowed inside the Overton window.
World,
yes, exactly. and not just with regard to platforms, but with regard to publishers. So, for example, this week, NBC News deciding that Ronna McDaniel was too much for them. Ronna McDaniel can't work at NBC News. The sacred halls of NBC News must not be sullied by the former head of the RNC. Jen Psaki, however, can have a show on MSNBC despite being the press secretary for the White House 5 seconds ago. Right? The right's response to that is, I think, correct to say you guys have shut the Overton window too tight. But I think some elements of the right have basically said there is no Overton window. The Overton window should be completely exploded with regard not just to platforms, with which I kind of agree, but with regard to publishers. So NBC News not only has an obligation to hire Ronna McDaniel, NBC News has the obligation to hire Alex Jones, for example.
Right, which just makes no sense at a business level beyond free speech. I mean, there's a reason that networks exist.
Right, they have editorial positions. Yeah. Daily Wire has a very strong editorial position on a wide variety of issues. And by the way, I should say that there are a lot of people who are suggesting this is about disagreements over Israel. I mean, I can safely say it is not about disagreements over Israel, to the extent that, without reference to Candace at all here, Matt Walsh has taken the position that America ought not be involved in the Middle East at all. Matt Walsh's position, so far as I understand it, and I've talked to him about it, is that Israel, in a conflict between Israel and Hamas, Israel is obviously a more moral party than the genocidal terrorist group Hamas, but also it's very far away. He doesn't care, and it doesn't involve America. That's just a pure isolationist position. I disagree with it. I think it's wrong. I think that it's short-sighted. But again, he's on our platform. That is well within the range of acceptable discourse at the Daily Wire. So, the notion that you have to mirror my exact perspectives on what Israel is doing in Gaza is obviously not true, based on the roster of hosts that we currently have. There are a lot of other factors, obviously, at play.
Then a few days go by. Joe Rogan comments about it on his podcast. I'm not going to play that clip here. It's not too important. But what happens, like the day after Joe Rogan talks about it, is all of a sudden there were email leaks. The supposed town hall email that was sent to all the Daily Wire employees after Candace was fired got leaked on Twitter. And so, yeah. Here is the screenshot of the actual email. However, obviously this email has never been confirmed nor denied by the Daily Wire staff. So as to whether this is real or not is still up in the air. It very well could be, but it may not be. But then, even more interesting, fuel to the fire, Candace sees this leaked email on Twitter and says, I was not aware of this. Maybe me and Joe Rogan should get together and talk about this while pretending we're not talking about it. Obviously making a nice little poke at Ben Shapiro, like, hey, Ben, I see you talking about me. Thought we were not supposed to talk about each other because they probably had an NDA that both of them signed, or everyone signed, so nobody was supposed to talk about it, but Ben's over there just blabbing about it. Then, a few days after that, Ben Shapiro goes on the Megyn Kelly show and talks about the Candace Owens incident all over again. Even after Candace is like, WTF, Ben, I thought we agreed to not talk about this. So I've got that clip right here.
Into a debate about whether the Daily Wire is pro-free speech. The accusation is you are until it comes to Israel. How do you respond?
We have a wide variety of positions on Israel right now inside the Daily Wire. Matt Walsh, obviously, is another one of the hosts at the Daily Wire. He and I wildly disagree about what America's Israel policy should be. Matt is much more isolationist. He basically believes the United States has no real interests in the Middle East, and thus the United States should not be providing material support to anyone, including the state of Israel. The Daily Wire is a publisher, not a platform. I would never call for anyone to be ousted from an actual platform, X, YouTube. Even people who are, I think, absolutely horrific human beings, I've never called for any of them to be ousted. In fact, I've called for them to have their accounts restored if they've been banned. That's not the same thing when it comes to publishers. Publishers obviously have to decide what sort of things they wish to pay for the publication of. And when it comes to, hosts and publishers, parting ways, obviously there'll be a non-meeting of the minds. That's pretty much all I can say on that.
Then Candace Owens sees the interview that Ben Shapiro did on the Rubin Report and responds to that on Twitter and says, Ben, we agreed to not talk about this, but you are very much going on a public tour right now, pretending to not talk about it while you are very much talking about it. Would you like me to do the same? Then a couple days later, Candace goes on a absolute Twitter rampage on the Daily Wire. She starts with this tweet. Pro tip to the people who keep screaming racism is everywhere during BLM, we're actually the racial supremacists. The people who are now screaming anti-Semitism is everywhere are actually just racial supremacists. They will smear you to get you to bow the knee to their superiority. Don't be fooled. Stand tall. Her Twitter rant continues. As the left is now describing Christ as king as something dangerous, it is very important to remember that this war on Christ was not started by the left. This was started by Andrew Klavan of the Daily Wire in an attempt to explain how I was anti-Semitic. Which, yes, Andrew Klavan did go on his podcast the day after Candace was fired, and he basically tried to, give a soggy biscuit explanation as to how saying Christ is king is anti-Semitic. It was, in my opinion, even more of a weak explanation than the Jeremy Boring's explanation on Twitter. That's why I'm not really showing it here. Plus, Klavan takes forever to say what I could have said in 2 or 3 sentences. But anyways, Candace's Twitter rant continues some more. Candace says, Internet, I need your help. Last week, upon my leave from the Daily Wire, a journalist informed me that someone behind the scenes was attempting to shop a story trying to correlate me to Nick Fuentes. This week, that same journalist informed me that the same person is now trying to shop a story to correlate me to Milo Yiannopoulos. Who do you guys think could be the mysterious person trying to get journalists to connect me to those two very specific individuals, neither of whom I know? LOL with a laughing emoji. And yeah, those are very subtle, but very, like, if you were paying attention to what was going on at the time, those were very subtle, but very obvious pokes and prods at Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, because, you know, they'd fired her the week before. And then Ben went on this media tour about this, and yeah, Candace is just like, well, fine. If you can go on a media tour about it, Ben, then I'm going to tweet about it. A few days later, Candace Owens, sees Andrew Schultz talking about the Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens controversy thing. I made a whole video on this, so if you want to see that clip, go check out one of my other videos. But Candace says, I would like to debate Ben Shapiro on Israel and the current definition of anti-Semitism. Can somebody make this happen? Then Ben Shapiro sees Candace's tweet and responds and says, sure, Candace, I texted you about this on February 29th, offering this very thing. Let's do it on my show this Monday, 5 p.m., our studio, Nashville, 90 minutes live streamed. And Candace says, I'm sure you can appreciate why I prefer to keep this off the Daily Wire platform, as well as the reason why we were never able to make any discussion happen. Let's choose a neutral, trustworthy platform. I vote Patrick Bet David. Ben responds, Candace, I can see why you'd want to hide behind a moderator, particularly one who would wanted us to rename our company the Daily Jewish Wire just yesterday. No, 5 p.m., blah, blah, blah. Candace, I'm not hiding behind a moderator, LOL. I'm just choosing to not bring eyes to the Daily Wire. And she's calling Ben out for basically taking Patrick Bet-David's words completely out of context, because Ben absolutely did. Then Ben Shapiro replies to his own tweet and says, I'm now signing off for Sabbath. I'll plan to be in Nashville for this conversation on Monday. And, you know, Candace is fired up. Candace keeps tweeting. Candace starts tweeting with Patrick Bet-David. Patrick Bet-David throws down $250K to put the debate on his platform. Candace is also explaining why she can't make the Monday deadline because she's in England right now and she can't make it there by Monday because this happened on like Friday, I think, or Saturday. I don't know. But yeah, it's basically like she's not going to catch a flight this weekend to go talk to you, Ben, when she's in England. And then she basically calls out Ben Shapiro saying that she thinks this is BS, this is phony. He doesn't actually want to debate her. That's why he gave her the 5 o'clock on Monday deadline, because he knew that she could not make that deadline. Then Jeremy Boring decides to step in and say it's Sabbath. But I think Ben was clear. One-on-one in person, Nashville, Monday, 5 p.m. live streamed on X and YouTube. Blah, 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 blah. They go back and forth for a while, and eventually they agree on terms and conditions. And Candace says, major win. And so they are supposedly setting this up behind the scenes for everyone to watch. Now, this is where we are at currently. I checked everyone's Twitter today. There has been no updates on this specific topic or subject. Things have not progressed past this point. This was about a week ago from when this video is being recorded. And yeah, this is where we're currently at in the Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro drama. So now everybody knows what led up to this huge debate between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. And that is if this debate between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens actually does happen. I really hope it does. It's going to be a very interesting debate if it does happen. So yeah, guys, let me know down in the comments if you think this debate is actually going to happen or not, if Ben Shapiro was just peacocking and trying to pretend like he would debate Candace Owens, or if he's actually going to debate her. You know, I don't know. I'm torn 50-50 between both. I'm like, I could see this happening, and then I could also see Shapiro ignoring it, because that when Ben Shapiro signed off on Sabbath, when he signed back on, you know, he hasn't said anything about this since this whole thing went down on Twitter with Candace and they were talking about the debate. He basically just ignored it, but that could also just be because Jeremy Boring coordinated with Candace on his behalf, and there's no reason for them to post on Twitter because they're coordinating behind the scenes. I don't know. We're going to find out, that's for sure. And you best believe that I will be reacting to it here on this channel when it happens. So make sure you leave a like on this video, subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to follow me on Rumble.